Okay, 6:05. All right, so I think we'll get started here because we're about 5 minutes after 6 here. So, first off, thank you for everybody who came to this. I know data centers are quite the hot topic right now, and we'll be talking a lot about that. My name is Mitchell Ryan Diston. Recently moved here a year and a half ago. I lived abroad for 10 years, finishing all my studies. I'm a biologist and ecologist by training. I think it was the Kalkaska Data Center that I guess opened my eyes to AI and data centers. So I started researching the scientific literature behind data centers, and I was massively concerned by what I was reading. Especially, so a lot of my background is ecology, evolutionary biology, but also history and philosophy of science. And the literature, which I have up there, a bunch of scientific papers on data centers, a lot of that was published in 2025 or 2026, which means to me, signals to me, this is a very new area of research. We don't know a whole lot about data centers, especially the long-term impacts of data centers. So this was massively concerning when I was reading the bit about Mr. Ryan, who is a developer in Kalkaska, come try to sell us on the data center. Can you guys hear me okay? I know that I'm not near the mic, but I'm loud, so okay, good. Yeah, hopefully that'll work anyways. But so yeah, that I think what I was reading, Mr. Ryan, who also had his PhD in geology, what he was saying about data centers, it felt like whitewashing to me because he was talking specifically about certain parts of data centers, but he wasn't recognizing what I was seeing in the scientific literature of the environmental costs to data centers, the social costs, the public health costs too. So we will talk a lot about these costs today. Mostly what I've noticed pop up in the last 3 to 4 months, there's been a few nonprofit think tanks pop up that have been specifically funded by big tech. So we have noticed a lot of misinformation out there in the Michigan media market. We'll talk a bit about that today, show that, and show where exactly I believe that, I guess, big tech propaganda, how that diverges from the science and what I'm saying in the scientific literature today, because they're telling two completely different stories, which is, I think, a story that, or I guess just a fact of life now that we've all become quite accustomed to. But yeah, I guess we'll talk a bit more about that. I started this 5 Lies and the Truth About Data Centers reading through Big Tech BS, but I recently, I guess I expanded it to 6 lies because I realized there's a pretty big other lie. So it's now 6 lies and a truth about data centers, and I still haven't updated that there. But yeah, so I just searched Kalkaska Data Center, by the way, and this is my friend Heather Weiser, who came front and center here. So that was pretty cool to see that. Oh yeah, so I'm also running for state rep in this area, the 104th district, mostly because of data centers, because of the things that I've been seeing playing out in the state legislature. A lot of my friends have, well, actually, it started with, I guess, naively asked my friends, why is Whitmer so pro data center, and who is their science policy team? And I was laughed out of the room. They go, you think she has a science policy team? And they said that basically everybody in Lansing, they don't care about science unless it aligns with corporate interests. So that massively worried me. I guess that's one big reason why I was like, okay, I will try to run for office and get myself in Lansing. Don't know if it'll work. It's a very hard area district to run in, but yeah, I probably won't talk more on that right now. But if anybody has questions, by the way, feel free to ask within the presentation. Happy to answer them when they're fresh in everybody's mind. So yeah, today I guess we'll go over data center basics. First, we'll go over the 6 big developer lies that I've been seeing around Michigan. And then we'll go through one truth behind data centers, and then we'll also go to the real reason behind the data center craze, or what I believe is the real reason, the deeper reason for why we're seeing data centers. And fun fact, that will get quite fun, maybe a little bit what some people might call conspiratorial, but as a scientist myself, I follow the evidence, and unfortunately I believe that this is where a lot of this evidence is leading, but yeah, we'll talk more about that. But then my colleague here, Samantha Zuvrink, who's a former federal compliance officer, will fill in a lot of the technical blanks here too. So she will get up and talk on a lot of the holes that I am not covering. And then we'll get to, I guess, a bit of Q&A if people have questions, because I'm certain that there will be some questions here. So, obviously, data centers have become a hot topic. I didn't include the, it wasn't MLive, it was Bridge article that was, it was an informal poll of Michiganders, and 163 Michiganders found that data centers were their number one issue going into this upcoming election. So obviously data centers are a massive issue in Michigan and abroad. We'll get into more on why it's an issue in Michigan specifically. But this is just that I have a massive protest sign, and this is what I always protest with this sign here. The precedent is Flint, how Oregon's data center boom is supercharging a water crisis. This is a Rolling Stone article. So great article going through what's going on in Oregon there. Talk a bit about that. But okay, so what is a data center? So data centers are large industrial facilities that house thousands of computer servers. They are necessary for digital infrastructure. They do circulate water throughout the system to keep them cool. And they need to be continuously on because they have a massive energy load. So this is why water continuously circulates through the system to keep them cool, because these things run hot, baby. So there is a massive material cost to AI and big tech every time that we are using AI. Obviously, there's a material cost. Don't feel wrong if you didn't know that before 6 months. I didn't really understand that as well. So I think that's just an awakening that I think we need to have across the world, that every time we're using AI, obviously there's a massive material cost, specifically to the communities that have these data centers here. So there's many different types of data centers. Of course, we have the enterprise data centers, colo data centers, hyperscale data centers, edge data centers, micro data centers, cloud data centers. I know you'll speak a little bit about that, Samantha. But what we are specifically seeing right now and talking on in this presentation, but in Michigan right now, are hyperscale AI data centers, those built by companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon. So they can span hundreds of thousands of square feet and consume as much electricity as a small city. And of course, we can see the increasing size of data centers over time. 1970s, it was just a small little room, going up to today, these massive, massive warehouses. Obviously, it is necessary, critical digital infrastructure for things like hospitals. Schools usually have their own server room, even casinos, if you count that as critical infrastructure. I know some people do. What we're talking about with those data centers is probably 1/10 of this room. It's a very small room that houses 10 to maybe 20 servers max. What we're talking with these hyperscale data centers, thousands and thousands of rows of servers. So we're talking exponential proportions here. A bit on the shift here, as we can see, the traditional data centers, they had very simple GPUs and TPUs, whereas these AI data centers are using GPUs and TPUs, using very specialized processors for parallel tasks, unlike the sequential focus of CPUs. I probably won't use all these acronyms and go into all that because I don't think that it'll be beneficial for anybody to go into. But I guess what you can primarily note here is the difference in surging power here. The average rack power was 5 to 10 kilowatts, whereas the average surging power consumption for an AI data center is about 10 times the power of the average rack power, so 30 to 50 kilowatts. And next-gen rack power, about 100 kilowatts plus. A lot of these data centers, we're going up to even a gigawatt. So, we're just talking in different proportions whenever we're talking about a small-scale data center relative to the data centers that we're bringing in today. So, we will watch this video because I think it is quite telling of a lot of the myths behind data centers and how the media has been portraying data centers. They always try to be objective. Of course, myself, I'm also a journalist now. I write for the Northern Express. If you want to go see the piece, actually, I headed up Data Center 101. That'll give you a little bit of background on data centers. Unfortunately, as journalists, we always try to be objective, but I believe that sometimes we fail that mark whenever we try to say, hey, there's a pro and a con to everything. I think that this is something called the middle ground fallacy. Not every topic has a pro and a con side. especially with how the media market right now is saturated with big tech propaganda. So this is one of the main reasons why we're trying to host this meeting, is correct that misinformation. So yeah, we can just watch this.
The hot issue throughout Michigan. A hot issue with communities and commissioners debating and discussing, often with a lot of division, confusion, and unanswered questions. Enter the Citizens Research Council of Michigan. Better information leads to better decision making. Better decision making leads to better government. And this, they say, could be some of that better information. A comprehensive report evaluating policy controversies when it comes to the larger proposed and already built data centers in our state. Our intent was try to dig into a lot of the talking points. For one, economics.
Once the construction is over, there really aren't a whole lot of jobs.
For the most part, the construction jobs are short-lived, and once built, the centers typically don't serve as business attractors.
And there can be exceptions, but generally, when you get a data center, you get a data center.
Individuals may not benefit immensely, and due to limited state taxing on centers, Michigan as a whole may not either. But the findings suggest that local governments can, with increased property tax revenue.
It could be a game changer for local governments.
So what about electricity? A lot is needed to drive a big center.
Residents are not on the same grid as hyperscale data centers.
And data suggests that actually adding more of a demand has historically kept prices for everyone more stable,
keeping electricity costs lower than they otherwise would be.
Water is a little more complicated.
Data centers can use up to 5 million gallons per day, with much of that consumed through evaporative cooling.
But different cooling designs have a different impact.
If data centers are using non-evaporated cooling, they're consuming very little water.
Potential wastewater would need to be addressed, but that's not the only pollution concern.
Data centers are pretty unique in the type of noise they emit.
Data centers typically produce lower frequency sound, so it may not register at a point that violates a community's current noise ordinance. So local communities may want to address that.
It is possible to cite these things in a way to prevent adverse impacts from noise.
93 pages, not arguing for or against, but hoping to provide good information so that when data centers go up for debate, the right decision for each individual project and community can be made. Mark Gillette reporting.
Okay. Can anybody spot any of the inconsistencies already? Well, we'll get to a lot of them here. So I did a bit more digging into the Citizens Research Council of Michigan, which is a recently formed research council information campaign. I just took one look into this report, by the way. If you see, can you see my thing? No, you can't see, okay. Well, then I'll come up here. So their board of directors includes people from General Motors, the Michigan Association of Counties, but also the big ones, Deloitte, Consumers Energy, and DTE. And obviously, public utilities have a lot to benefit from bringing in a data center. We will get to a bit about that. But in this report, by the way, these are some of the summaries that they had. However, local host communities may substantially benefit from property tax revenue and or community benefit agreements. The negative impacts of data centers are often overstated. While there is risk of unsustainable development, Michigan's water resources and power grid appear capable of accommodating substantial data center development under current policies. So I guess we will go through a few of those claims here in this talk. The first lie that I have been seeing, I guess more from the good governor here. She recently went before a BlackRock forum, I believe in Washington, D.C., and she said that data centers will have no impact on consumers and the grid. In fact, some will get rebates because of the way it is structured. But of course, a recent Harvard report analysis reviewed 50 regulatory proceedings and found that utilities are shifting discounting rates onto residential customers. The name of this report, by the way, Extracting Profits from the Public, How Utility Ratepayers Are Paying for Big Tech's Power. And they ended this, they concluded in this report that without systemic changes to prevailing utility rate-making practices, the public faces significant risks that utilities will take advantage of opportunities to profit from new data centers by making major investments and then shifting costs to their captive ratepayers. So recently, a Consumers Report article found that 70% of Americans are concerned that data centers will raise their bills. Bloomberg analysis found electricity costs surged by 267% over 5 years in areas with high data center concentrations. Utilities nationwide hit record $31 billion in rate increases in 2025. Here in Michigan, DTE and Consumers Energy have both asked for largest rate hikes again in the last year, which were approved by something called the MPSC. If you haven't looked into the MPSC, please do. I plan to make that a very front part of my campaign, or regardless if I win or lose, because the MPSC is not my friend. We can say that as a nice euphemism. DTE recently asked in February for $242 million increase. Recently, in April, asked for a $474 million increase. Consumers Energy, $276 million in May 2026. AG Dana Nessel basically said everything going up with the MPSC and utility corps are treating Michigan families like an open checkbook. And I happen to agree with her and very much would like to thank her for her taking I guess the high ground position on this and backing Michiganders and not taking the corporate position here. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, but what does MPSC stand for?
Yeah, the Michigan Public Service Committee. Yep. And so, funny enough, it used to be specifically geared towards power. I guess how to regulate power over time. I think it was 2023, they were granted bigger rights. I can't remember the exact word for it, but now they oversee all clean energy projects, and they unfortunately can if a local township says, hey, we don't want this solar farm, we don't want this data center or anything connected to what they say is clean energy, even when it's not like a data center, MPSC gets to rule that's not the case. You basically have to accept it no matter what. So it steals local control and gives it to the state level. And my public perception, or my opinion of what it is doing now, is that it was a committee that was basically designed to take the heat off of politicians and regulators for basically not doing their job. And it seems like this is why they've been granted extraordinary powers over the last few years. It's also a governor-appointed board of 3 people that specifically, again, governor-appointed. I probably won't go into more on that, but I just leave that amount of information there. So, of course, too, Jerome Powell, Fed chair, recently said that in the short term, what's happening is we're building data centers everywhere, and that's actually putting pressure on all kinds of goods and services that go into building these data centers. So that's actually probably pushing inflation up. So that's coming from the mouth of the Fed chair there. So, again, I believe the truth in the matter here is that your energy bills will go up and you will be left subsidizing a multi-trillion-dollar big tech industry. I believe that is where the evidence has sufficiently been pointing. Oh, there we go. Okay, lie number 2 that we commonly hear from developers here is that we're bringing jobs to your community. Another fun one here. So the Switch case, if you haven't heard about the Switch data center in Grand Rapids, it's a doozy. Please go do your homework, because in 2015, Switch promised 1,000 high-paying jobs and $5 billion in investment in exchange for tax breaks. By their 2022 reporting deadline, Switch had created exactly 26 jobs, 2.6% of the initial promise, at a median of 36,000 a year. And a lot of these jobs were, again, HVAC people, or people also maintaining the lawns of the old steel case building in Grand Rapids here. Fun fact that I just recently learned too is that it was fitted for military grade security. So I don't know why it needs to be fitted for that, because it wasn't before as steel case, but now as a data center, they feel like they need military grade security. So I will also leave that bit of information there. How did Michigan legislators respond to Switch not fulfilling their initial promises? They established a tax-free one-way for big tech's massive data centers, as MLive basically put it. So in 2023 and 2024, a few bills, HB 4095 and 4096, establish tax breaks until 2050 for all big tech corporations, basically absolving Switch of all their guilt, by the way. I forget what Bridge had an article specifically on this, and they were talking that they basically let Switch off the hook by allowing them to count employees of other companies towards its total. So other companies that or other employees that were not in Michigan, a change which ultimately allowed the company to continue saving an estimated $1 million per year at the expense of the state. So again, despite the broken promise, the state legislature responded in 2024 by extending and expanding the tax exemption for all big tech companies until 2050, which estimates, this is coming from Bridge, by the way, estimates suggest reduced state and local revenue by more than 90 million, sorry, 90 million in lost tax revenue. So again, we are subsidizing a multi-trillion-dollar industry here. This was the fun one when Matt Ryan came into Kalkaska. He said, oh, we are going to give 70% of these jobs to locals with no formal hiring agreement that we saw, by the way. 70%. So a Brookings report, by the way, found that most hyperscale AI data centers typically employ between 25 to 125 full-time workers. Again, typically HVAC or IT specialists. So if we go by Matt Ryan's logic, 70% of 25 to, even if we give him 50 to 100, I mean, those really aren't a whole lot of high-paying jobs that we believe that will be coming in to Michigan here. So a truth of data centers is that it is one of the most labor-light and energy-intensive industries on the planet. So yeah, we will also talk about the energy part of this here in a second. By the way, I just want to mention that who was responsible for penalizing the company was the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. I've been to a few meetings with these people. They try to say, again, we're not pro data center, but if you go look at their website, it tells you otherwise. So just keep that in the back of your head there. So again, whenever we're talking about jobs, by the way, nobody ever brings up the other part of AI, the fact that AI is leading to massive job loss. It's actually the number one reason for layoffs now in the United States. That was a Founders Report that recently came out. In 2025, about 55,000 to 110,000 jobs were cut, specifically citing AI as a major factor. In 2026 alone, what we've seen is 365,000 jobs. So we're talking about 300 million jobs worldwide will be exposed to AI automation, I believe, by 2030. Oh, so these were two. Actually, this was a range. There was one report, the WEF had 92 million by 2030. Another report had 30 million. So where this range goes are still both those, the lower end or the higher end, are still massively worrying. And yeah, about 27% of those tech sector layoffs were directly tied to AI, mostly coming from Amazon, from Meta, from even BlackRock. By the way, they recently secretly fired about 300 of their employees for AI-driven finance. Who knows what they actually use them for, actually. But so yeah, this is obviously a massive concern whenever we're talking about the jobs argument of AI. Well, we're kind of building the infrastructure that's going to end up taking a lot of our jobs in the future. So whenever we're talking about net jobs, we're talking a massive job loss for the infrastructure that we're building. Okay, this is a fun one. I had to, I guess, admonish a candidate today. I'm not going to say which specific candidate that I was at a town hall for. She was citing exactly what I've heard Governor Whitmer say multiple times. Oh, the closed loop systems. Those are the more environmentally friendly option for data centers. From what we've seen in the scientific literature, first off, are closed loop systems truly closed? No, they are not. They have two loops. There's an inner loop that circulates water, and then there's an outer loop called the heat exchanger loop, which is highlighted here. And that regulates water intake and discharge. So even in a closed loop system, you're going to have water intake and discharge of that water. So an EESI study, I can't remember, do I have what that acronym stands for? I think I do somewhere. Nope, not on hand. Oh, by the way, so I'm going to publish this. We just started a Substack. So I'm going to publish all of these findings on the blog, and we'll blast it out. So if everybody wants I guess the resources, the sources of everything that we're talking about, I'll get you that. And then you can bring this to your friends and show them, no, well, closed loops really aren't that close. So an EESI study found that approximately 80% of water withdrawn evaporates in a closed loop system, with the remainder discharged as wastewater to municipal treatment facilities, or worse, directly into aquifers. Also found that only 1/3 of data centers actually monitor their water use. And this became a big issue recently. There was a data center down in Georgia. They found out, by the way, that they built a completely new part of the data center that wasn't connected to the water grid, or they weren't being, I guess, charged for all the water that they were taking. So there was just kind of a secret system that they built to the municipal water systems. They found out that it was actually draining 30 million gallons, and this is a closed loop system, a day, unannounced or unnoticed. Until residents finally put pressure, and then they found out that, yeah, it's actually, discharging a lot more than what the initial promise from developers here. So let's see. Oh, and that company, by the way, in Georgia is owned by the private equity firm Blackstone. So yeah, this is why they always tout the closed loop cooling system, which says it says that it does not consume water for cooling. There's also a Manistee developer who we ran out of town, thankfully. We're about 4 for 4 for stopping these up north. We're doing quite a good job. Our team, we have a really fantastic team that goes to all of these, and part of them are here today. So yeah, we're doing a great job of stopping them up here. In Manistee, a data center developer came and he goes, "Oh yeah, there's new technology. This data center won't draw any water." Now, we know the new technology, what he's talking about, is called water immersion. We know that it still intakes a lot of water. When we kept pressing his feet to the coals, by the way, we kept asking him, where does he get his information? Where is he getting it from? First, he was trying to say, oh, the experts. We asked him 5 times, and I was holding up my scientific paper saying, where are you getting it? Because this is telling a different story. He finally said that he went to a conference down in Florida held by basically all the major big tech corporations. And so it was the big tech consultants who were feeding him this information. So funny enough, right after that, the crowd got pretty rowdy. It's a town, by the way, in Manistee, Stronach Township, about 2,000. I think 400 people showed up to this data center meeting. And it was pretty cool to see because his security guard had to walk him out. Just because of, I guess basically all the BS that he was telling all the community here. So that was pretty cool to see. Continued about closed loop systems. Whenever we're talking about closed loop or using less water, there's always going to be a trade-off. Less water always equals more energy because that'll take more energy to actually cool that water over time. Actually, one paper says that it requires about 10 to 40% more energy to operate than traditional evaporative cooling. One analysis said that closed loop systems are a hidden transfer of environmental cost masked by clean technology branding. So it's basically greenwashing. One big Ketos report that recently came out, I think that's that top piece right there. Closed loop systems are a chemical time bomb. They release higher concentrations of salts, heavy metals, antifreeze, biocides, corrosion inhibitors, which include PFAS, and known carcinogens. This is the reason why I want to challenge the claim that closed loop systems are the more environmentally conscious data center. So when you're evaporating that water over time, again, you're having higher concentration of pollutants in that water that will then be discharged back to water treatment plants. If you know anything about our water treatment plants, they basically only siphon bacteria and viruses. They don't do anything for heavy metals, for carcinogens, for PFAS. That's why it's distributed back to all of us in our drinking water over time. So we don't have the technical capabilities of actually sieving out a lot of these pollutants when they do go to a wastewater treatment plant, or worse, when it goes directly back into an aquifer. So again, this is something that not too many people are talking about. I wish more people were talking about the dangers of the closed loop system and all the chemical pollutants that will likely be released into our water system. Of course, recently, I think everybody's seen the news too that the Meta data center, I can't remember where it was out west, they found like a super bacteria. And they don't know. I mean, it's giving that bacteria infection, or it's giving people infections around that area. So again, it's like even though our water treatment plants are supposed to siphon these, they can't always doing that, even with the bacteria there. So I believe the truth of the closed loop system is that there is no such thing as an environmentally friendly data center given current technology. But actually, Samantha has a fun point about that maybe we can talk more on the nuance of this, because apparently there technically is. It's just not the most cost-effective way to. So obviously, big tech doesn't want to pay more upfront for our safety. Oh, this was so the Kitos report, by the way, concluded their analysis saying that data centers are critically under-equipped for real-time water quality monitoring, creating an imminent risk. Everything I know about working with Eagle over the last year or two, they're rubber stamping all these. They're not doing environmental impact assessments. There was a big Detroit News article on that, by the way. The Saline data center, they didn't have to have an environmental impact assessment, again, because Eagle rubber stamped it. They didn't have to go through that typical process. So keep that in mind. Whenever we think that we have these regulatory safeguards in place, we do not. So I just don't trust the government right now to specifically be able to effectively regulate this industry, mostly because they are paying off. The utility corporations and big tech are paying off a lot of people on both sides of the aisle right now. There's a Detroit Free News article that came out in December. It said Governor Whitmer has received about $5.5 million in dark money from DTE, a big reason why. A lot of this money also came in about 2023, 2024, when those the data center bills, were actually going to go into remission, and nobody was actually going to revive them. Weirdly, the governor just happened to step in during this time and revive them. So, that's an inside scoop there. Probably get in trouble whenever I say stuff like that, but I feel like people should probably know those deeper parts of this. But okay, lie number 4, that data centers are safe for your neighborhood. So a first of its kind study. Again, whenever we're talking about these studies, a lot of this stuff, 2025, 2026. But we've seen a lot of big science outlets a lot of big science journals finally talking about this and publishing papers. One was published in Frontiers in Climate, another one in Nature, another one in the Lancet. So we're seeing the big journals finally taking up the health risks, public health risks, and the environmental impact risks of data centers. So this one by Gur et al. 2026 concluded that data centers can cause serious public health harms through degraded air quality, noise pollution, heat island effects, and the straining of water and energy resources. So they concluded by saying policymakers must mitigate harms from operational data centers by enforcing stricter environmental regulations, monitoring emissions, and mandating mitigation measures to protect surrounding communities. Transparency is essential. Residents have the right to know the risks associated with data centers and should be actively informed about industry practices. Now, every single data center meeting that I've been to, not one developer is talking about the risks like this. They gloss over the environmental and public health consequences. They briefly talk about it, but they gloss over the deeper issues with data centers here. So another study, Nagata et al., most overlooked impact is noise pollution. I think we have a video showing what's going on in Dowagiac, Michigan, or however you say that town. I can never say that name, but the Amazon Oregon data center, the one that was mentioned in Rolling Stone here, reporters found that household wells tested as high as 7 times the legal standard for nitrates, which we believe led to a lot of the increase in rare cancers, kidney failure, and miscarriages found within that area. Recently, they took Amazon to court, and the locals won a $20.5 million settlement. Was it? Yeah, $20.5 million settlement over it. But again, I don't know how many people it's already affected. How can you place a price tag on people's lives, especially miscarriages, lives that weren't even born yet, too? So That just massively pissed me off when I heard that. There's also a paper that was published in the Lancet Global Health by Fiske et al. 2025. I believe I have that paper back there if you want to take a look. That stated that for now, it is abundantly clear that major multinational technology companies, i.e. so-called big tech, cannot be left to manage their own environmental or ethical compliance. They also noted that these costs fall disproportionately on communities that already suffer from environmental injustice. This is a big thing that we notice in Europe. There's a bunch of European industry reports that have basically said the same thing, that they have much stricter data privacy laws, big tech laws, because they know big tech cannot be trusted over time. Of course, we do not have those same laws. Big reason for that, when I lived over there, I noticed they have very strict safeguards around their political process, that corporations are not allowed to buy out politicians and give them donations over time. So whenever we're talking about the number one reason for why we're seeing different things in the United States, always comes down to money in politics, is my belief. So the truth of data centers and are they safe for your neighborhood, that there's nothing objectively safe about a data center moving into your backyard, objectively following what the evidence is suggesting right now. So this is a piece, or a brief video of what's going on in Doozy, downstate here. So that's a constant noise. That's a constant noise that those neighbors are hearing. I remember one of these scientific studies said that this noise leads to cardiovascular risk because it puts you in a perpetual sympathetic nervous state, fight or flight mode, basically. Also leads to mental health issues and sleeping abnormalities. It really affects people's circadian rhythms. A recent study found out, too, bees aren't going nowhere near our data centers anymore. It's actually declining all the local bee populations. And we specifically think noise pollution, air pollution, light pollution are a lot of these big reasons why. So if you remember the original video we watched, they were talking about, oh, these things are, you can put them at a safe noise and it can be safe for the people. They're at low frequencies. Again, this is how big tech developers and the propaganda machines we've seen already pop up in Michigan, this is how they've been feeding their misinformation campaign, feeding it to all the Michigan media markets right now. And unfortunately, the Michigan media markets, a lot of them don't have scientists or data analysis or research professionals to actually go through, sieve through the literature and actually find out what is the truth of the matter. Also, this is a recent video of water from a data center.
Drinking water in Morgan County, Georgia. Right after a data center was constructed, the metadata center was constructed, the only difference between the clean water and this was that data center. I have another one as well. So this wasn't just one well. These wasn't just one family's situation. This is what the drinking water now looks like next to that data center.
Yeah, I think that tells the point pretty clearly there. Don't think I need to go into more consideration on if a data center is safe for your neighborhood there. Data Centers 101, this is a little thing I put back together when I wrote a pamphlet. Things that we didn't touch on, thermal pollution. A lot of this water discharge, especially back into, if it's next to a stream, by the way, which they are trying to put a lot of these data centers back to a major body of water. You have thermal pollution, that water is being discharged and it's hot water. So that really affects local wildlife who just don't have, I mean, that's just not their natural ecosystem habitat. So, yeah. Energy consumption, soil erosion and runoff. Yeah. Okay, lie number 5. This is the one that I split up in between another one, that data centers won't impact climate change. Heard numerous developers and especially establishment Democrats saying this because they don't want that to follow them around when they don't want to be put in the precarious, paradoxical situation of, oh, you know, we need to fight data center, or we need to fight climate change, and then be like, oh, but we're also pro data center. So Chen, a Nature article, reported that global data center electricity consumption projected to double by 2030. An IEA report found that electricity demand will quadruple in that period, not double. Again, in the US, AI training and inference became dominant workloads, pushing total electrical consumption from 4.4% in 2023 to 6.7% to about 12% by 2028. So electricity consumption, again, is a major concern. Remember when we were talking about the trade-off between water and electrical use? Zhang et al., a study in 2025, found that 99% of data centers' total environmental impacts, including greenhouse gases, result from electricity consumption alone. So remember that whenever people are talking about the closed-loop systems, again, I think that this goes into that argument that maybe the closed-loop systems probably aren't the most environmentally friendly option. A study done specifically at Meta, by the way, pursuit of higher quality AI modeling within Meta resulted in training data doubling, model sizes increasing 20 times, in infrastructure capacity tripling in just 2 years, which resulted in an exponentially expanding carbon footprint. Most of these facilities rely on diesel generators for backup power, emitting nitric oxide, which is a very substantial greenhouse gas, and particulate matter, both linked to respiratory illness and cardiovascular risks over time. One study concluded that increasing data center electricity use could be a serious risk for our ability to achieve our climate goals, says Alex de Vries, a researcher at Free University of Amsterdam. We're going to increase our reliance, or at least extend our reliance on fossil fuels, he concluded. So I believe the truth of this lie is that data centers have serious consequences on climate change. And this is one big reason why here. As you can see, this is, I believe it's Elon Musk's data center. I can't remember where. I don't know if that's the subject of this one, but I know that he's using primarily diesel generators to actually power his entire data center rather than, going through an evaporative process or closed loop process. Yep, sorry.
It could be Stargate in Texas, but I'm not sure.
Might be. I just know that it's Elon Musk that's specifically doing. I don't know if it's this one, but they did a heat map.
Out of that stack. When you see this much color on the screen like this, what does that tell you?
Signature, so that we know that pollution is happening at this site.
This is Stargate, one of the largest AI data centers in the world. It's currently under construction in rural Texas. Stargate will eventually include 4 million square feet of buildings across 1,100 acres. That's larger than Central Park.
When we get a look at it, we'll get a real sense of the scale that is involved here. I mean, this is a massive site.
It's estimated that by the year 2030, nearly $7 trillion in data center infrastructure in a race to dominate the AI market. But this race to build AI superiority is happening so fast, many are concerned that companies might be cutting corners or taking advantage of regulatory loopholes, especially when it comes to electricity and water required to run these massive data centers.
I want to see if they have a video at the end of actually showing like the heat map of like one of these. Yeah, okay. We're not gonna get to that, but go watch this video because it was quite telling. There's one big. They ran the heat map over the Stargate, and there are 20 of these siphons. I don't know what to call them. What are they? Stacks. Yeah, they're just the core of the factory stacks that are releasing pollution into our environment here. So that's fun. This is a fun lie that I hear propagated more on social media, that data centers are inevitable. Oh, the China argument's more on that, but we always hear this. We've heard the governor say it. We hear a lot of politicians say this, especially establishment politicians, when they don't correctly really understand what's going on with data centers. They're, again, following this middle ground fallacy, I believe, of, this could be economically beneficial for us at a state level, local level, but there are, environmental issues. So maybe we can still have them, but we can have like a green version of them. We can accomplish the economic goals and the environmental goals at the same time. Again, I think that's the middle ground fallacy. I don't think that's true. What is important to note is that this batch of AI data centers are not being built for critical digital infrastructure. Your phone already it already does 90% of its computing processing power within it. It's not keeping these data centers are not being built to keep your email running. 70% of the world's internet traffic, by the way, of the world's internet traffic already goes through Data Center Alley in Northern Virginia. This is one reason why we house a lot of data centers already. Larry Page from Google says that he's willing to go bankrupt rather than lose this race. So the above ground reason, which they tell people every once in a while, is that that these data centers are being built to fuel a corporate AI arms race among trillion-dollar big tech companies that have spent 2 decades monetizing our personal data over time here. So this is what Larry Page is specifically talking about, this AI arms race between big tech. Oh, we need to win against all the other big tech corporations. Gallup study recently found that 71% of Americans oppose building new AI data centers in their local communities, with nearly half, 48% strongly opposed, only 7% strongly support their construction. These are crazy numbers, by the way, if you know Gallup. Usually Gallup is like on a hot button issue, it's only like 60-40 or something. The fact that it's 70-30 is pretty dang big for Gallup. I forgot to mention this. This is a former Google research scientist, John Palowich. This was a Times article, by the way. I don't think I have it up here, but specifically it cites this quote: "I was working on something that I thought was good for the world, which is access to information." He says, "I gradually became aware that this was dual-use technology and that it could be used for surveillance, state violence, and genocide." So that is actually getting into the deeper concerns with data centers that we will talk about here in a second. But whenever we hear politicians talk about data centers are inevitable, I call this a deterministic argument because I've heard it for how many industry talking points from anything else, any other economic project. They're inevitable. There's nothing you can do. They're basically trying to tell you you can't do anything. Take your power away. Take our power, the innate power, the majority away from us. The truth is that we live in an effing democracy. Nothing is inevitable. We get to vote in what we want, and we get to vote out what we definitely don't want. So, did that make sense? I don't know if I said that correctly. Yeah. Yes. China argument. This is a fun one to always hear on online. It's a classic fear-mongering tactic. Oh, we need to beat China in the race for AI. If you see the graph here, we have about, what is that, 10 times? More than 10 times the amount of data centers in China right now, 5,381. China has about 449. Recently, Biden admin came out saying beating China isn't a strategy, it's a sales pitch. An ex-OpenAI researcher wrote the famous Race with China manifesto and then launched a hedge fund shortly after, which is now not valued. Now it's valued at $1.5 billion. Meta spent over $85 million on a dark money campaign running ads that branded AI regulation as pro-China legislation. If you also remember, it was hilarious when that Shark Tank dude, I forget his name. What's his name? In Nevada? Mr. Horrible. He was like, he said that all of us protesters are China protesters. Yeah, and we're paid protesters by China. And I don't know how you guys are doing financially or where you've gotten money, but yeah, all of our checks have gotten lost in the mail here. Also, by the way, like our team, we organized the last two statewide protests. Very involved in this issue on a statewide front. So again, if there were checks that were to be sent from China, especially in a hot battleground state with data centers as we are, they'd probably be sent to us, and I haven't seen one check in the mail yet. So, yeah.
I thought we were being funded by George Soros.
Yeah, that's another. Yeah. Still haven't seen that money, too. Yeah. My campaign hasn't either, but yeah. So also, if we were, Trump on his recent trip to China took the NVIDIA CEO specifically with him to sell chips to the Chinese government. So if we were really in an AI arms race, would we really be doing that? Would we really be giving them some of our best technology? So again, truth behind this, we live in a effing... Selling them, sorry. Yeah, selling them. Yeah. There's another part to that story too. I can't remember what they were saying, but yeah, okay, we'll get... Oh, this was fun. So I believe the major claim that we can be making here is that the rate that this race framing with China is a lobbying instrument deployed selectively to extract subsidies and kill oversight over time, and in a rural Michigan tax exemption has no plausible connection to national security. That's my above ground position, by the way. I believe I said some below ground, and actually we'll probably be getting into that here in a second. But the truth about data centers, again, we the people retain the right to say no. Actually, I want to start with this quote. So David Graeber is a hero of mine. He's a famous anthropologist. If you haven't read The Dawn of Everything, it's basically how we're looking at human history now. Completely rewrites the history textbooks. If we can sum up his work in a nutshell, it's that the ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it is something that we make and could just as easily make differently. Again, what he was specifically attacking in an academic sense is the deterministic argument that basically everything, our hands are tied on where our worlds are heading, where we know. And actually, that was a big claim that he made in Dawn of Everything, is that our pre-modern ancestors were a lot more socially and politically conscious than we believe them to be. They had very specific socio-political structures that were actually based off of seasons too, which is really cool. So in winter seasons, they would happen to be in more of an egalitarian setting and more in societies of like 100 to 200 people. Oh yeah, we'll talk about Dunbar's number here in a second. But then in the summer, they'd come together with other tribes, and they would need a more authoritarian's a bad word for this, but I guess more rules and laws and more centralized system to, I guess, make sure everybody adheres to the same rules. So that's pretty cool stuff. Not going to get into so much time here I completely forgot I put this meme in. Apologies. But yeah, this is I love this Anakin meme. Yeah, AI is going to be used to change the world as a tool to make the world better, right? And then it's, yes, I think that speaks for itself. Again, the truth about data centers, a peer-reviewed science shows data centers pose serious health, environmental, economic, and social risk. Energy bills rise, job promises are hollow, green cooling is not yet viable, the carbon footprint is vast. We are not in an arms race with China. It's corporate welfare 101. Data centers socialize the costs and privatize the gains. We need more local control, so screw the MPSC. We are not a site for any out-of-state developer or in-state developer. We are a community. So the only viable policy that I believe follows with the scientific literature and the public consensus on data centers is that we don't need them and we don't want them. So it's not a moratorium, it's an all-out ban on data centers. Because of what we now know about data centers, the little glimpse that we've seen from the scientific literature today. So now is probably the less fun part of this talk. If anybody wants to leave, I wouldn't blame you, but I will be going into what I believe is the deeper truth behind data centers, why we're building these data centers. It might get a little dark, but we'll end on a positive note. We'll come together and we'll hug. But yeah, we'll start dark here at least. So if you don't know Tristan Harris, by the way, go follow his stuff on Google, because he's an ex-Google scientist, ethicist. There's a funny joke, by the way, that they say in Silicon Valley that the job with the quickest generational or fastest generational turnover in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco right now, is a big tech ethicist. And we've been seeing that exact same thing play out over time. One ethicist, by the way, he quit his job and went to go be a painter in London. And he cited that basically we're all screwed, and I just want to live my life how I want to live my life. So that was massively encouraging to hear. But
things like blackmailing people. And we have evidence that we didn't have even like 6 months ago, where an AI model reading the company's email finds out it's about to take replace with another AI model, and it also reads the company email of being a favorite employee. The AI will independently black that executive in order to keep itself alive. I mean, we're heading for so much transformative change faster than our society is currently prepared to deal with it. And there's a different conversation happening publicly than the one that the AI companies are having privately about which world we're heading to, which is a future that people don't want. But we didn't consent to have 6 people make that decision on behalf of 8 billion people.
I'm sorry?
What was it that Hal, the computer, said at the end of 2001?
Oh, I don't know. What's that?
Well, he said to the astronaut something to the effect of, "I'm sorry, so and so, I can't do that."
Yeah, yeah. Which is where we're leaving.
Yes.
This is one. So this is a study too that, or I guess an article that I recently found that AI models are now disobeying humans 500% more than they were 6 months ago, and I believe this was published about 2 months ago. When was that? March? No, yeah. So a few months ago. That's massively concerning. If you understand where AI is right now with the LLM's model going to an AGI, artificial generative intelligence, that places us in a very worrying era. I believe, maybe I'll talk about that here in a second. I believe we have a new reality to accept. Again, political, this is why the book that I have back there is called Common Enemy, The Falsity of the Left-Right Divide. Everything we've seen over the last few months with the Epstein files, actually, again, this is something I would have said conspiracy theory 6 months ago. I think there's way more evidence for it. And I didn't even put in the fact of the Dialogue Secret Society that they recently found, Peter Thiel's secret society called Dialogue. And all their, I think what, like all the, it's like $25,000 buy-in or something. A bunch of people in powerful positions coming together to talk about things that are massively concerning. One, surviving World War III. One's about governmental surveillance. I forget the other massively concerning one. So this is a new reality that we have to accept that we live in right now. What's more concerning, I found the Anthropic debacle with the Department of War with Pete Hegseth. So there were two lines that Anthropic had for the Department of War using their AI systems, and they lost a contract for $200-some million because of this. Their two lines were no mass surveillance of Americans and no using their AI system for their single kill chains. Which, if you know anything about the single kill chains, that's what they're testing out in Gaza right now. It's basically using AI. It's skirting any human accountability and letting AI choose the people that it's allowed to kill. And their drones are allowed to kill. Massively concerning things, too. It's like we heard, I think it was Tucker Carlson even talking about it on a podcast of like drones shooting children and having bullet heads from straight down. It's like the first kind of warfare we've ever had something like this. Yeah, again, I apologize for getting dark, but I believe that this is something that we just kind of got to talk about now. So I believe when we're talking about the Anthropic debacle, OpenAI openly took that contract and said that obviously OpenAI doesn't have any ethics, and actually that's why Anthropic was created. It was the guy who was working for OpenAI, and he goes, I don't like their ethics, so I'm going to create Anthropic. Still a lot of concerning things around Anthropic, but definitely better actor than OpenAI, because they took on the government contract, and so now we really do have to worry about using these massive data sets for surveillance of Americans and for providing the digital infrastructure for these mass kill chains. So we'll talk about this. So this is a little background. This is Catherine Austin Fitts. She was the Assistant Secretary of HUD during the Bush administration. I can't remember which Bush, if it was last Bush or previous Bush. But she was fairly well connected. She's been going on a lot of podcasts talking about the control grid and why that's concerning. So this is, again, another real reason behind data centers building the control grid. Oops.
Was put into the White House to persuade conservatives to go along with the control grid. And what you need to understand is if you just operating in Washington, there is nobody on our side. They are all trying to implement the control grid, and the question is who's going to control it and who's going to make money on it. So is Trump our friend? Absolutely not. And if you look at the
She's a Republican saying that, by the way. I thought that would be helpful information.
effort that the administration has made to build the control grid, the local hardware and software infrastructure, billions of dollars. So let me step and talk about the local infrastructure and then come back to this side, Andy. Let me explain what AI is really good at. So there's a lot of crazy, magical, stupid thinking on AI. But one of the things I will say about AI is absolutely superb at implementing or tracking things that can be expressed mathematically. So its ability to collect and process huge amounts of data like surveillance data, you're trying to implement spatial control or financial control, it's absolutely fantastic at, okay? And if you look at all the data centers we're building all over the country, they are there for control. That's what they do. They're not there to make businesses. You know, I always laugh when the guys say, oh, we poured all this money into AI and it's not making companies more productive. Well, of course, it's not meant to make companies more productive. It's meant to make sure that the leadership has complete control, spatial control and financial control. I just noted Congressman Massey is now fighting to kill the switch in your car. You know, kill the car switch. So they've got new.
By the way, this was before when Thomas Massey wasn't ousted, and before when they were talking about the law that, or the bill that eventually became law, signed in, that they're going to put sensors in all cars by 2027. So this was before, when she was highlighting these claims. We saw Congress acting exactly in alignment with what she's saying here.
Your car can be turned off, you know, remotely, and so he's trying to kill the kill switch. But that gets back to spatial control, and if everybody's in a way to kill the switch, there you go. You've got total control of movements and money.
Okay, I thought she was going to go more into it because that's why I was letting it go. But what she goes and talks about after that is central bank digital currencies. This is the financial system that we know a lot of people in power really want to import into our societies, because then they will have total financial control over everything that we do. They could turn off our money whenever we do something that they don't like. If we're going to protest something that they don't like, they can turn it off, and then we'll have no way to actually go buy anything. Again, as she mentioned, doesn't matter. This is not a left or right issue. They have bought off fair chunks on both sides to build this control grid over time. So just keep that in mind whenever we're talking about this. And obviously, it wasn't great seeing her premonition come true. Talking about the law with the car sensors. So a lot of scary big tech quotes, obviously, too. You've probably seen them on Facebook here. Eric Schmidt, Google CEO, saying, "We know where you are. We know where you've been. We can more or less know what you're thinking about." Mark Zuckerberg on users handing over their personal data. They trust me, dumb Fs. And that was a leaked Harvard-era message. Sam Altman said that AI will probably most likely lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies. That's one of my favorite ones to always hear going back. Yeah, I don't need to go through all those because those are quite scary. So, I mean, if we're really seeing where a lot of these big tech CEOs are pointing our society towards, again, you always have to classify. By the way, Peter Thiel was one of the most mentioned in Epstein files. There's a lot of emails with him going back and forth between him and Epstein. Obviously, whatever is going on, this network of whoever really owns a lot of our world. They are also working with the tech bros on that. I think what I know from insiders in Silicon Valley right now in San Francisco, if you think about the intellectual zeitgeist, it's something called the Dark Enlightenment. It is run by a man called Curtis Yarvin. It's a very, very scary intellectual framework that basically says that we won't be able to own anything. 10 people in the world will be able to own everything. We are basically slaves. We are peasants to them, as like a techno-feudalist type world. So again, something that probably 2 years ago I would have said this is probably conspiracy theory. I don't think that this is coming, but yeah, there's a lot more evidence for this today than there has ever been before. So great book on it, Techno-Feudalism, What Killed Capitalism. This is why one big way to undercut what I see going on right now, I wrote this book, pamphlet, Common Enemy, The Falsity of the Left-Right Divide in America. Mostly because, so as the historian part of me noticed that there's always two groups of people in history. There have been the people who just want to live their life, put on this world to live it for social relationships, for their families, for their communities, just here to, I guess, have a good time and enjoy everything that the planet has to offer. And then there's always been probably less than 1% of people, economic elites, who have always been hell-bent on trying to control everybody else. Going back to Roman times, this is the philosophy of divide and conquer. Every Roman Empire had this philosophy. That's why divide and conquer is a weapon of social control over time. I call it German tribe theory 101. The German tribes, they would used to cite specifically their differences rather than the similarities. So then they're able to divide them over time and conquer them. Now, the German tribes finally wised up to this strategy, and then they're like, hey, we actually have a heck of a lot more in common than we do these Roman conquerors. So they actually came together and they formed a higher level identity group saying we actually have more in common, and then they took over Rome. So I'm really hoping that we can build something like that here in the United States. And obviously, division is always the distraction. Always have outrage politics. Sports, the World Cup, kind of serendipitous timing that we have it here right now. Yeah, and I don't believe anything. I don't believe right now, given our current context, there's anything. I don't believe that there is a Democratic Party. I don't believe there is a Republican Party right now. I believe it's only the 99% versus the 1% in equality and progress metrics are used to justify a system that only funnels power upward. I've been stumping on this, by the way, massively well received within a lot of the rural MAGA communities right now. So it is a really great time to actually be arguing this. And I believe data centers are the perfect example of this over time, mostly because we agree on data centers. 71% of Americans agree on it. That means that we actually agree on what we want our future to look like ahead of time, that we actually agree. We don't want an artificial future. We actually care more about social relationships, about community, about familial concerns. That's a society that all of us really want on the ground, whereas our big tech CEOs are pushing us in a society that, as Tristan Harris alluded to, none of us really want. So I believe we need to wake up to that fact that's happening right now. Again, the fix is also local solidarity, something called localism, decentralized systems, and we'll talk a bit about that. Great quote here, by the way. Give people a common enemy, and you will give them a common identity. Deprive them of an enemy, and you'll deprive them of the crutch by which they know who they are. So this is a snapshot of a much longer lecture that I want to give. I've already given snapshots like 30 minutes, an hour of it. I want to give the full 3 or 4 hours because there's a lot of shit going from going from evolutionary biology, anthropology, sociology, economics, indigenous philosophy, indigenous history. But what I am seeing, how I'm trying to sum everything I've been seeing in academia, I guess, for the last 10 years, is that we only have two possible futures. We have an artificial society or a natural society. I believe we don't have nation states anymore. Actually, I don't have this slide up here. I also believe the United States is already considered a failed state. So we have 5 main metrics for social collapse over time: political polarization, social inequality, military overreach, social cohesion. I can't remember. I always forget the 5th one. But anyways, usually when you hit one of these, it's a cause of concern for sociologists to say that, hey, basically you're approaching societal decline. The United States has hit all 5 by our birthday, our 250th year anniversary there. So I do believe we already live in a failed state. I don't believe that we live in a nation state anymore. If you saw the last, I think it was a G20 meeting, all the big tech CEOs were sitting alongside the the heads of states, which is massively concerning, first off, that they are sitting there at the G20 meetings. It's also showing that this global whatever we have, society has already been built, and basically our nation states are kind of these, I guess, diversion techniques. And this is also part of this divide and conquer. They really try to force this patriotism and nationalism on you to keep your identities within here too. But yeah, so I believe the difference is a globalist technocracy versus a localist eco-society. Main difference between these two societies, is that power is centralized in a globalist technocracy, whereas in a localist eco-society, it's decentralized and back in the hands of individuals and communities where they should be. Fun fact, I believe it fits with the narratives of the founding fathers better than anything else that we've argued for societies over time. Jefferson actually had a really great quote about this. What our townships now, we call them townships, they actually were first called ward republics. And his vision for America was actually to have semi-autonomous farming communities of about 150 individuals that basically hold more of their decision-making power than state or federal level governments. Of course, over 250 years of the United States playing out, we've lost more and more freedoms with every single election cycle and given more of that power to an economic elite over time. So this is also why I believe localism is basically the only way to undermine and undercut a massively centralized state. Also, a very great quote on localism. It's a political philosophy, by the way. If you want to look it up, G.K. Chesterton has a quote that the main two world wars in the 20th century weren't fought between socialism and capitalism. It was centralization and centralization. Because what we've seen most socialist and communist societies evolve over time, it's actually centralizing more of the power in the hands of a few people over time. This is massively concerning whenever we have any amount of higher level institution because that can be co-opted over time. So that's why I always say, I go on my stumping speech now that I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm not a capitalist or even a socialist, I'm a localist, and that also seems to play well with just about everybody because they're like, yeah, I believe in building up local communities over time. So this is something that we're testing out. If you want to join the larger movement that we're trying to build, I was trying to connect dots between what I was seeing with all my friends in Saline, everybody who's been part of the data center movement here in Michigan. What is the common thread across political boundaries to everybody basically that I've been talking to in the data center, and Republicans alike too, they want to see a more naturalist society, a more naturalist way of building a society. So we want to live naturally, not artificially. Localism, again, I believe the future is localized and decentralized and not federal and centralized. Our modern bureaucracy, our modern social systems are a massive evolutionary mismatch, by the way. So we evolved for 95 to 99% of our human evolutionary history. We existed in small communes of egalitarian societies. Once we started evolving higher level societies, we lost a significant amount of what it means to be human. And actually 90% of our issues, from mental illness to mass shootings, to loneliness epidemic, to inequality, basically stem from us building these higher level societies over time. So this is again why I believe we need to argue for localism. Also a fun anthropological area called Dunbar's number. We have psychosocial cognitive limits, basically, for how we can build a society with the most amount of social cohesion, which means we all trust everybody. That's how a society really works, because then we can help everybody and actually have an egalitarian society over time. So it's the rule of like 5 of your closest friends, 50 super acquaintances, 150 acquaintances, 1,500 tribal members are like banned. That's how you can build a society. And fun fact, most corporations stay around 1,500 people inadvertently, implicitly, they don't even know it. Also, fun fact, a lot of Amish societies stay around 150 people, and then they split off to form a new Amish society once they hit that 150 mark, which is funny because they probably wouldn't agree with the underlying evolutionary biology or anthropology behind Dunbar's number, but just kind of a cool fact of nature here. So again, I believe democracy, I believe even socialism and egalitarianism and everything that we've been arguing for at a national scale is the right idea, but it's just applied at the wrong scale over time. So we just need to think more locally. So if you want to join the naturalistic movement, again, we have a sign-up sheet back there. It's also part of the campaign. Don't feel like you have to donate. If you don't have the money, don't worry about that. We're basically taking phone numbers and emails to just build a big database of people, so then we can inform people whenever we have a new data center popping up, or if people just want to know about building a naturalistic movement here in Michigan. So again, many different facets of building a natural society and natural culture. And natural culture is actually the academic term that I am actively building in the academic literature. I don't have a slide on that. You're right. Okay. Well, that's another time here. So, also, please come to our AI Data Center National Day of Protests, 11 a.m. at Rotary Square. Yeah, that should be fun. Our last protest was quite fun. And yeah, come with signs. And yeah, we'll just do a brief marching and give some brief overview and yeah, just talk about why we don't like data centers. Say what? We'll yell why we don't like data centers. Exactly. Yeah, a few things if you want to follow. That's the website, Common Sense Politics for 21st Century, MitchForMichigan.com or Mitch for Michigan on Facebook. And then we're going to also build a greater Facebook page for the naturalistic movement. Maybe be connected to the Eco Village thing that we've already done. So, but we're going to talk about that. So, yeah, that's that. Thank you for coming, for everybody here. If anybody has any other questions, happy to answer them here. So, thank you. No questions? I love questions. Please, somebody nerd out with me for just a second. Yes, Kate Gallup, thank you for your state senator over here.
Hey, so this great presentation. Data centers, obviously, in my campaign are also one of the biggest issues that's come up, and I thank you for being a voice. Also, our district somewhat overlap. So I actually used to be a patent examiner, and so some of the patents that I looked at, just to comment, because I kind of enjoyed your like, what is coming, is I actually saw, I worked in the e-shopping area, and so it's like, how can we sell more stuff to people? And a lot of that requires a lot of data collection. So I actually looked at patents that had these large language models that were collecting data on people in order to sell people more things so that we can have these capitalistic societies that like benefit a few companies. And one of the things that came up was actually using our DNA profiles to recommend things to people. And in order to mass surveil people based on their DNA profiles, you need to have data centers in order to be doing these calculations to like decode our genetics for what they can sell to us. But it's not just that, it's also like all the other things that come with knowing that aspect of ourselves, and then the other information plugged into it on like who we're related to, who we communicate with, where we are, like the things that you talked about. Putting all that together, it's taking away so much of our humanity, of just letting us be ourselves, explore the world, because so much is going to come through an algorithm and say, we already know what you like, we already know what you want, we already know how to keep you engaged, we already know how to even mess up your mental health so that you stay engaged and get these things that we think you'll buy that we're going to tell you are going to make you feel better. So it's pretty dystopian, and I appreciate that so many people are out here fighting it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Kate. For the viewers at home, Kate just told a massively concerning story about how she worked in a patent office and she had to look at a lot of these surveillance pricing technology. And that's what I always lead with, by the way, because that is like, we know that Walmart's already doing this. They already have so much data on you, and then they're jacking up prices for things that you commonly buy. I didn't even touch on flock cameras. I was supposed to, by the way. So I have a Northern Express article coming out, I believe, in the August 10th issue. Flock cameras massively concerning. And if you want to talk about that later on, come and find me. And if you want to talk about that too, you have a bit on that. Good. Yeah. Because that is how they're building basically the modern surveillance state underpinned by Palantir. Even though when they say that it's not by Palantir, it is. So yeah, we're going to be hosting more protests specifically on flock, because right now there's 28 flock cameras in Grand Traverse County. So I spoke to the local PD here, the city PD, yesterday. They said some massively concerning things about flock, that they don't really know where this data is going. They think that they control that data, but they do not. I heard the same thing from the Antrim County Sheriff Department, who I massively respect, by the way. He just didn't know who Peter Thiel was. So it's like kind of concerning that there are a lot of other things about flock as the corporation that we need to be talking on. Yeah?
You've said flock like 6 times. Are you saying flock like a flock of birds, or is this an acronym for something?
Sorry, I should have been more specific. Yeah, so it's called Flock Safety as a corporation. So they are automatic license plate readers, ALPRs. They go in discreetly, by the way. usually a lot of townships don't want to talk about that because they know they draw the ire of the local communities. Which downstate, finally, we've seen so many more communities finally come and talk about them. I have seen local news outlets talking about Flock, but the pro-corporate version, pro-Flock version of Flock. And they are not talking about the deeper concerns with Flock. So this is why the Northern Express piece that will come out on August 10th, that'll give you a bigger understanding of what the concerns are, deeper concerns behind Flock. One example, down in Ferndale, Michigan, a councilwoman ran an internal audit on their Flock safety cameras. By the way, local PDs use this to catch people like drug outstanding warrants. They did find like a missing persons case, which is pretty cool. A few children. So there are like a lot of pros for actually bringing these in, and that's what a lot of these PDs usually cite. I am, and a lot of other people are concerned with the deeper surveillance aspect of these things. The fact, by the way, there's a YouTube video. You could just go search Flock and it'll be the first one that comes up of a hacker. He hacked in within 30 seconds. He goes, this is so easy to hack into, a 12-year-old could do it. We think that's also by design, so a lot of these private corporations can hack in almost immediately. We also know Flock just signed a contract with a cybersecurity firm that they didn't have before. We know that they test these things, and there was one test that was done in Georgia, and how they were testing it, they were using their system to overlook a little girl's gymnastic class, and that's how they're testing it with their local PD. So there's just a lot of very weird things with this corporation, and you go do your research, you'll find this, because I wasn't able to put all of it in the article. But what happened in Ferndale, councilwoman, she ran an internal audit. She found that local PD, Ferndale PD, searches accounted for less than 1% of all searches. 99+% were made by federal agencies and perhaps private corporations as well, even though contract supposedly says, no, it's local PD data only. So just keep that in mind. These things are massively concerning for so many reasons. But yeah, that article should give you a bigger, broader understanding of Flock. And they're becoming a bigger issue here. I'm seeing way more posts on Overheard in Traverse City. So we're trying to, again, join the naturalistic movement. We'll tell you whenever we're hosting these, come be part of that movement. We want you guys there too. So yeah, thank you for that question. Anything else?
Just to add to that, they call them the license plate readers, but you'll find them pointed down walking trails, at playgrounds. Multiple cases so far of police officers using them to stalk their partners, ex-partners, or people that they have nothing to do with.
It's also facial recognition.
Yep.
It's not just license plate.
Yeah.
It now also has the capability to hit your Wi-Fi or your Bluetooth if you walk around.
I saw that.
Or Bluetooth on. So they don't want to just know the driver of the car. They want to know everyone in the car and where do you think you're going.
Yep, exactly.
You add that to
The patent.
all of the data that we're getting from the corporations trying to predict what we're going to buy.
Yep.
You add in the where you are, and they can predict so many things about your movement.
Yep.
And all of us in this room are on the list of people that are going to be threats.
Targeted.
Yeah, if you're
Well,
in this room, you're a terrorist.
well, so we also know, I didn't touch on that, DHS and FBI has been building, they call it a domestic terrorist list. And it's basically anybody who's been fighting data centers is on that list. And what the hell they're going to do with that list, who knows? I know that we have to, our team has to be top 10 on that list, or else I'm going to be pissed, because we've been working really hard to get on that list. So who knows what the hell will come of that list. But again, it's, where's all this Flock camera data going? A lot of these data centers, again, being built for that surveillance concern, control grid type concern. There was something else. Oh, that when I was talking to the sheriff department in Antrim, we were telling them about the patents of Flock, and I would love you to look at the Flock patents, because in the Flock patents it says drone integration and facial recognition software. And the sheriff goes, well, are they really using that? Like, even though it's a part of patent, like that doesn't mean they're using it. Well, we just found out last week, police department downstate, they were trying to bring in the drone integration part of the Flock cameras. I can't remember which township down south, but I just know that it happened, that they're finally trying to bring this in. So we know this is a big part of their patent and of their technology. Actually, their patent tells that it's a surveillance technology. How they sell everybody else, it's to protect you and your community over time. So.
Give up a little bit of your freedoms, and we'll keep you safe.
Yep. And I'll end on this quote because I love this quote. I'm going to paraphrase it by Benjamin Franklin. Those who trade liberty for privacy deserve neither. So just sit on that. And that's a good place to end here and get into Samantha's talk here. So thank you guys again. I'll be here afterwards and hopefully for a while. Yes, I can. Here, do you want to take this?
Oh, sure.
And just put it pretty low because it is pretty.
Like down here?
Yeah.
Hey, the library closes at 8, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We
So
have to be out pretty soon.
my apologies. We should. I talk.
That's okay. I'm going to be like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh wait, can I introduce you real quick?
Oh, sure.
Samantha Zuvrink, a former federal compliance officer, has a wealth of knowledge of local politics, state politics, federal politics too. Has been basically overseeing how a lot of companies, especially in the energy sector, have been working over how many years now. So wealth of knowledge. If you want to know technical aspects, she's your woman here.
So I'll give you a 4-minute breakdown. I don't know what time it is. Maybe it'll be 6 minutes. So I am a retired federal compliance officer. My job was to help companies and corporations with their data and their policies. That was the majority of my job until probably 2020, and it became a lot more data-centric. Federal compliance officers, I personally have 12 years in law, but we have a focus area. So I was given transportation, energy, there's more than me doing that, so don't worry, government and municipal law. Under transportation, my area of expertise is in commercial motor vehicle, okay? And large commercial trucking companies. We were all trained in rail, marine, and air, but that was my specialty. So there's another guy that I love that was on shipping, right? We chat quite a lot. Energy, I don't have enough time from now until I die to tell you everything I know about energy. First, I want to tell you that top data center up there that says Enterprise is the only data center that is necessary in these great United States, okay? Corporations are regulated by law on their data management, okay? We have PII, PI, HIPAA, GDRP, GAP. We have all of these laws and regulations that dictate how the company can keep its information, okay? So your employees, obviously you don't want their social security numbers or their bank deposit information for direct deposit out there. So it is regulated how that is stored, where it is stored, a record management software, and a record retention schedule. That was the base of what I did for corporations. Our enterprise data centers, you don't even know they're there. You'll never know they're there. We don't have a lot. We don't need a lot. They're standalone. Some of them are in the middle of the desert using waste heat to power, or what somebody might call behind the meter systems. They are completely self-sustaining. They're in the middle of the desert because they use ammonia, right? It's like a 5-mile death cloud, right? So we don't want that anywhere near any population. Or we use immersion technology. There is currently a pilot program in North America going on right now. It is all immersion cooling, and the two companies are LiquiStack and Isotope. So we have some of our stuff being cooled using that, not here, okay? Our data centers are there is no data center that's environmentally friendly. Our data centers don't affect the population directly. They're very small. Microsoft has a small server farm. Amazon has a small server farm, not the Oregon one that's a complete mess, but smaller firms. Usually, hospitals, electric companies, power generation, power distribution, schools, universities, they all have their own server room, right, on site. And it's small, and it is well run. What I mean by that is, so you have data that needs to be destroyed. The two parties that are responsible for the data, right? So legal and accounting, legal and engineering, legal and whoever gets that information, and then that stuff can be deleted and rewritten. So the chance that a power company or hospital or somebody would need to continue to grow their server storage isn't real likely because of the amount that is being rewritten over top as documents come up for destruction. This is something we never talked about before because it just works. And so it wasn't that it was not well known, but unless you worked in the industry, you just didn't understand. There are two types of data centers that are just creating this fever pitch data center conversation, and they are not the enterprise kind. We don't need any more of those. We don't need any more at all of anything. But they are Oracle. Oracle is the company that put that in Saline Township. That is the backbone for AI, okay? So, and the other data centers that they're trying to build are ones for Palantir. Palantir is Peter Thiel, okay? How many people have seen the not Netflix, the Amazon Prime show, Person of Interest? Everybody else needs to watch that because that was a soft sell on this Peter Thiel flat crap because there's two dudes on there that are helping people. What you need to pay attention to is Samaritan, which is the program operating in the background that they are not using for anything other than ceasing dissenting voices. Okay, so that is what Flock, so Flock is the mechanism that they use to capture the data, okay? And the AI centers are the place where they're, or the data centers are the place where they're going to store it, okay? The AI lives over here and it sifts through that information, okay? I need you to understand, I'm not trying to terrify you, but I need you to understand, when you go to bed tonight, 74% of the internet traffic in the United States is going to be MTM. Does anybody know what MTM is? Machine to machine. The AI in Oracle is conversating with the AI in Grok that's conversating with ChatGPT that's conversating with, okay? No, it can't be stopped because we would have already. The rate at which it is learning and understanding and rewriting code so it can fit better in the servers should terrify everybody. So if we don't build the AI data centers, the world isn't going to end. Okay, no matter what anybody says, it isn't. And also, I have a question for you. How many people have traveled outside of this country? Okay, has anybody ever been to China? Okay, I hate to break it to you, but China already won. There's an AI data center and a corporate data center and a surveillance data center on every corner over there. It is a complete and total political tool. We are never going to win this race, which I'm fine with, because my grandpa used to tell a joke. Do you know how the world's going to end? No, Grandpa, how? Because a scientist is going to say, oh my God, it worked. Okay, so if we're going to have some sort of a major problem with AI, I would much rather China do that over there. Something else you might not be aware of if you haven't traveled to other countries is that most countries have their factories on waste heat to power. Okay, the factory captures its own heat, it turns it into megawatts, and whatever's left over they sell to the grid. Consumers and citizens are the only ones on the grid. Okay, there are exceptions, governmental things and different, depending on what country you're in, but for the most part, they all use waste heat to power. If our power companies just our power companies in this nation would use that technology, we would have more power than we knew what to do with. If they would just regulate that they put it on top of factories, right, like East Jordan Ironworks. East Jordan Ironworks could completely lose their electricity bill and sell the extra power back to the power company, right? The regulations in this country will not allow them to do that. Lots of red tape, very expensive to set up front. Why would the power company want anybody to use their own power generation? Because I can't figure it out. That's probably why we have the regulations that we have. I saw economic hitmen. Okay, here's some stuff because I'm gonna stop because we're gonna run out of time. Hillsdale College has free online classes. All you have to do is have an email. I've been taking classes there for longer than I can remember, and they do not spam you. They'll send you a progress report, but you can go on there, put your email in, sign up. The first class you need to do is declining citizenship. It will tell you exactly what has happened in this country. The second thing you need to do is Constitution 101. I can teach you how to defend yourself, but there's only 1,500 me's, right? There's thousands of federal compliance officers, but there's only 1,500 of us doing this job right here, which is standing in defense of the citizen, right? So I can help you and teach you, but I can't travel to 36 different townships on the same night to do this. Books that I really think that would help a lot. Required reading. This would be my required reading if I was the head of education. They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, written in 1955. 1984, George Orwell. That was required reading for me. That's how old I am. Economic Hitmen, that was on your slide. Fourth Turning, Neil Howe and William Strauss, 1997. Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, 1994. The Missing Link, E. Raymond Capt. And Judas Scepter and Jacob's Birthright. Everything I do, I try to hold myself back to that standard. If you haven't figured out that this is good versus evil, not in like a spooky ghost kind of way, but it is absolutely a battle for your soul, then there isn't much I'm going to be able to do to help you. I don't need to have a Christian, religious, Catholic, Muslim, any other kind of conversation with you, but I need you to understand that where we're headed, it's going to become very apparent very quickly if we fail to hold the line. Does anybody have any questions? You can ask me anything you want. I will not talk about Epstein, and I won't talk too much about Palantir because I have NDAs. And I love Elon. I'm not going to say anything about his Stargate place because he's walks the line between wanting to do the right thing and getting pushed into stuff he doesn't want to do, I think. But anyway, go ahead.
So you said Hillsdale College, free education, first class you would take is what?
Declining citizenship. Declining citizenship. When you change the information or the education and people begin to feel hopeless, they know it needs to be fixed, but they have no idea how to fix it. That will tell you the path that we had been on and where we're going to head if we don't change course. Okay? I spoke at the Traverse City meeting, and I made my first public comment, and it was fine. But I spoke up because of a 3-minute time rule. Okay? I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of attorneys, which is why I am not one. Okay? I went to school so I could be their boss and review federal cases. Because after 2 years, year and a half in law school, I figured out it was a joke. The first year they teach you nobody on the planet, living, breathing, created in a court, elected by the people, can make a law in direct conflict with the Constitution. But your school board, I bet, has a 3-minute rule, doesn't it? They are responsible for teaching your kids. Under the Michigan, it says religion, morality, and the understanding of good government. Our people have no idea what good government is. Because when they try to exercise their rights, they get told to sit down, right? It's like my mom said, yeah, you're gonna spend the first 18 months of your kid's life teaching him to walk and talk, and the next 18 years telling him to sit down and shut up. That is how our government views us. We're not smart enough, okay? Until we have cohesiveness and an understanding of who we are, where we came from, why we fled here, we aren't going to have the community and the momentum that we need to go forward. People have forgotten who they are, and it was by design. It isn't anybody's fault. I'll give you an example. My dad, I love him to death, and he'll be so mad at me. But there was a running joke in our family, if you don't vote Republican, you're just done, right? We'll just remove your name from the will and you'll be on your way. I tried to explain to my dad, my first opportunity to vote was 1994, okay? I did not then, nor do I now, have a party. I never had anybody that fully represented my interests, ever. So we just moved on and accepted it, right? What is happening today is that my people are the party, okay? My whole generation is just done. We're done having the conversation. So my dad, I tried to explain to him, Dad, again, people are so good and so unable to imagine the evil or sneakiness of other people. But I started telling him in like 98 or 02 or, Dad, do you know how many people, you go in and you vote straight ticket. One and done. Do you have any idea how many Democrats are actually on that Republican ticket that ran as a Republican, but they're actually not? So when they get in there, they can have more weight on both sides of the aisle versus just on one. We have to get out of that mindset. There is no left wing and there is no right wing. Those wings are on the same bird. And if all we do is listen to this political posturing, we're going to be lost. What we need to pay attention to is the direction the bird is flying. We have been flying towards Marxism and socialism since 1973, the year I got here. So I will just close with that. There is a lot of information out there. Hopefully we will do another one of these. And I have a whole bag of books in the back. My reference material it would be amazing for some of you to see what the seniors were reading in 1884. I had to look up a couple of those words, okay? So we absolutely can right the ship at this point. Absolutely can right the ship. Is it ever going to be the same? Or is it ever going to be perfect? Or are we ever going to be completely a constitutional republic again? Probably not. But all of this stuff will become non-conversations. So, in closing, townships like to posture and say they don't want the township. And then they like to do goofy crap in their ordinances or with moratoriums. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, the time limit was up and now they're suing us. We have to let the data center come here. That was their goal the entire time. They didn't want to tell you no, so they messed up. And now they're getting sued. And now we have a data center. Do not stop watching that board. Push. We don't need a moratorium, we just need a no. How about a hard no? No special use, no nothing, just no. So watch them, because that's coming next. So does anybody have any questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yes.
Feel free to sign out.
I have to be so bad. Oh, I have to be so bad.
Yeah, we'll probably do a longer one of these sometime, so if people want to come have fun.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Our idea of fun.
We will be closing in 10 minutes.
We know.